the students are going to present. First, we're going to just kind of go through some general things to kind of give everybody a sense of what we've done and the things that we've looked at. And then we'll go back and there's 4 separate projects, and we'll do those projects kind of in this order, going from left to right. We would like to think of this as a conversation, so feel free at any time if you have a question or a comment or whatever it is, please speak up, and then we'll just talk about it. So I don't know who's going first.
Let's get started. To briefly introduce Grailville Retreat Center, the structure of how our studio ran, and then the structure of this critique. So I'll start with the structure of our presentation. You read it from, you can start over here, and then we'll keep going that way until we hit the last board. And the boards with the gray bars on the side, so this first board, Living Building Challenge, Energy, and Water, those are more general boards of research that we did, and they apply to everyone's project. And then the colored boards in between are individual projects done by teams of 2, 3, or 4 people. How our studio worked, it was set up kind of like an office. All 11 people of the 4th year architecture students who are graduating Saturday. We worked together to research on all of these things, and then ultimately broke down into smaller groups to look at different ways to go into Grailville and different approaches to it. So to introduce Grailville, if you want to look after the critique, we have a bit of history. It's a lay Christian organization that was started over in Europe and back in 1921 in Holland. And the main missions or things that the Grail focuses on are equity, justice, education, responsible stewardship, spiritual art, music, and liturgy. And so we wanted to carry forth those key missions into our new approaches. They also have housing for 50 people, overnight guests, right now, currently. And then they also have a dining hall on site. And clients, a big client they have is Life Success. And then they have a bunch of smaller groups. They also have an oratory, which acts like a church, so they can host some weddings across from the main farm of Grailville. And the farm is about 380 acres, which a good portion of it is organic certified land. And then on this board you can just see prime buildings on the campus of the dining hall on the far left, the caravansary, which is meeting spaces, and it has a really nice reception type space upstairs. Hodier, which is the main residential building, and House of Joy, which is a really cool old Victorian house with individual rooms upstairs. And so now we will just go and briefly introduce Living Building Challenge, Energy, and Water.
So I'm Emmy Jensen, and I just want to talk about one of the frameworks that we use for this project, which is the Living Building Challenge. I think most of you have a sort of familiarity with it, but for those of you who don't, it's meant to be the highest standard in sustainable project design. So I'm sure many of you have heard of LEED, and it differs from LEED in the sense that LEED gives a variety of objectives, and you can sort of pick and choose a certain number to achieve LEED certification. But in order to be Living Building Challenge certified, they lay out a variety of imperatives, and you have to meet every single one, and it is all or nothing. So it's a pretty big challenge to meet, but it's something that we really incorporated into our design because we feel that it applies so strongly to Grailville's mission. So you can look at this and read in detail about how we addressed each specific imperative, but the ones that we focused on the most strongly were water and energy. Basically what we have to do for each one of those is to have net zero water and net zero energy. Currently, because of the way that the law and codes are sort of organized, it's not quite possible to achieve those yet, but part of the Living Building Challenge is to raise awareness and to try to change those things so that we can someday have buildings that generate their own water and their own energy. Each project you will see has this little graphic in the corner, and this is a key that explains what everything means. Basically, this is how much energy is produced, how much water is used, the cost of construction per square foot, and how the cost premium is how much more it costs to build an LBC building versus a typical construction building. So you can see through each project how that applies. Also, with this bar at the bottom for the water usage, you can see there's black, gray, and white. The black water, it relates to black water, gray water, and white water. So white water is sort of like potable drinking water. Black water is used for irrigation, and then gray water is used for like toilets and stuff like that. So black water's toilets. Sorry. So that shows like how much water is used comparatively for each project. And it's a lot easier to generate your own black water versus white water. Usually that has to come from the city.
A lot of the energy research that we looked into for Cincinnati in terms of weather, but also passive heating and cooling strategies. And the information down here is just basic information about the climate, which I'm assuming most everyone is familiar with. And it just says that there's a lot of cloud cover. It's also humid during the summer a lot. Wind primarily comes from the southwest. And then so we took that information and we looked at heating, cooling, and daylighting, and then solar PVs. So there's like a basic comfort zone that people have, and these strategies allow us to extend that comfort zone into different seasons or different temperatures. So for heating, we looked at radiant flooring, controlled airflow, like moving air through a wall. We looked at thermosiphons, which use rocks to pass heat into spaces, and trom walls, which the walls themselves allow heat to travel from outside to inside. And then for cooling, we looked at different types of ventilation, whether it's vertical or horizontal, so stacked or cross ventilation. Desiccant waterfalls remove the humidity out of the air so that it allows you to feel more comfortable. Geothermal loops can be used for heating or cooling, but the tubes are underground, and underground stays about 55 degrees all year round. So it's a good way to moderate the climate inside. And then cool tube takes air from the exterior, passes it underground, it cools the air, and then it's pumped into the space. So we used all these strategies in our projects. We picked and chose which ones worked for our designs.
Hi, my name is Jessie. I'm going to talk about water. Water, as LBC outlines, it needs to be used and then put back into the environment, and this all needs to be done in a way that is chemical free and doesn't draw water from places that aren't on site. Unfortunately, the way ordinances in Loveland are structured right now, it's not legal to use your own water catchment as a potable water source. However, rainwater can be used for non-potable purposes such as toilets, landscape usage, and other agricultural uses. So we kind of focused on making sure that we were collecting enough water to be used for those gray water purposes, such as toilets and things like that, and then also worked on decreasing the amount of water we need to draw from the city for potable water purposes. And this is a graphic right here. I know it's kind of difficult to see from where you're sitting, but essentially it's showing kind of our usage, Grailville's total usage of water from the city before the project, and then looking at reducing this clean water down to 25% of what it's using now, and then looking at water catchment and reducing gray water usage down to 26% of that 100% that's being used right now. So essentially we're down to 50% of the total water usage and 25% of the usage from city water. And when we're looking at water catchment, we're looking at doing that off of surfaces such as roofs and canopies and things like that, not wanting to get water from any sort of underfoot surface because that can involve contaminants and, other animal fecal matter and things like that. So we're looking to keep that reasonably clean at least. And looking at first flush systems, a lot of us use this system, which involves use of a flotation ball so that the first flush of water, which involves twigs and bird poop and all the things you don't want to pump into your system, gets captured, roughly 5 to 10 gallons. And as that's happening, a tube is filled and a kind of flotation ball comes up, and eventually once enough water is captured for that first flush, it blocks off the opening for that first flush system and allows the cleaner rainwater to flow on to be used. And Grailville currently has a natural wetland that helps to process their used water. Ideally, all of this water is still going back into that wetland and being processed to the rain.
Are there any questions about the initial research?
Paul and I actually used biodigesting toilets too, so it's all out there. It's all different types of ideas.
Yeah, it varies by project. We looked at all these things.
Then one question about that water consumption that you mentioned after you implemented all your strategies and your potable water consumption from what it used to be has gone down to that amount. How much of that potable water that you're drawing from that city is actually used for potable purposes, which is?
Well, we talked a lot, we kind of debated a lot about, whether laundry was a potable, purpose or how we wanted to work that. And we kind of just decided that the way we were collecting water was just going to be kind of more geared towards kind of the lesser of the functions. I think we ended up deciding that laundry really was something we wanted to play it safe with, and that's kind of where we ended up on that.
Is there a definition for potable water? I mean, what is it, or is it a gray area of what?
Typically, it's water that is
Drinkable, I thought.
consumed, and
Yeah.
so kind of the main purposes would be showering, cooking, drinking, and other hygienic.
So showering is, you're
Is
considering that as
yeah, because
consuming.
you
would
can
go
consume
through,
water
yeah.
as you're showering.
And
Right.
dishwashing was the other.
Dishwashing.
All right, then I think we'll get started with our first project, which is Paul and Patrick down here in this corner. So there's 2 seats down here if you want to scoot your way down, or else it may be a little.
So I'm just going to try and kind of explain our business plan, and then I'll hand it off to Paul and he'll explain the building that we designed. For our business plan, like Mary said, we all took different approaches at this issue, Grailville. And our approach really was to return Grailville to its roots. We really wanted to scale back. So initially, in order to figure this out, we took a look at what was going on at Grailville right now, financially and all of that, and we took a look at what we thought would be a feasible progression forward from there. And the organic agriculture industry really stuck out to us, so that's the direction we pushed this all in. We were really pushing towards scaling everything, all the other programs back down, retreats, events, everything like that, and really pushing organic agriculture. So to do this, we took a look, like I said, at the programs that already were happening, and we decided the green line right here is agriculture, and like I said, we decided to push agriculture, which is also the green up here, and scale everything back down. So you can see as the phasing plan goes on throughout the years, we scaled retreats down and down and down and down, and we started building up more and more housing for agriculture because we really wanted to expand on the agricultural base that you guys had already. And then once we decided that it's time to get back into retreats and we can build off the base that we just set up in agriculture, we designed this building, and the ideas behind it were really to be an extremely flexible building, an extremely feasible and flexible building. I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about the building?
Well, it really came down to we looked at Grailville and we determined that the most valuable thing that Grailville has right now, besides the people, is the land that it's on. Most of it is certified organic. It's gorgeous farmland which is becoming more and more valuable as the cities are sprawling out. And so we really wanted to take advantage of the assets that you have. So kind of in the vein of the agriculture ideas and things like that, we wanted to be as minimal as possible with respect to the finances, the impact on the landscape, the history, and so we don't think that very many enormous changes have to be made at Grailville. We think that little tweaks here and there, and we can start getting things back on the right track. And we thought that starting off with these small units would be the right way to do it. So just to explain a little bit about where these came from a sustainable standpoint, the unique thing about these units, which are built on flatbed trailers, is that they can be moved anywhere on the site. If somebody needs them over here, you can bring them over there. If somebody needs them here, and so as we were looking at that and thinking, how can we move these things? How can we make it easy to move, and why would we need them to move in the first place? We kind of realized that the thing that makes the most sense about the movability of them is that you can actually change the orientation seasonally. So, for example, in the summer, you can shade it. In the winter, you can harvest the sun. And so that informed the movability of these things. And we also decided that to make it easier, we would actually have sort of like a shell, a living unit shell, and then a sort of plug that sort of like a campsite. If you ever have been camping in an RV or a pop-up tent camper, you go to the site. There's a hookup for electricity and water, and so we kind of have migrated all of the mechanicals to the permanent site, which is for example, this is the summer site here. It's kind of just a canopy for shading, and it's very simple. It can be used even when if the units aren't plugged in, and then so you can also, these would be covered. You can harvest the rainwater on top of the roofs. You can put solar on top, and you can actually use the site itself as a way to collect rainwater. And so all of this is kind of contained within these little sites that sit on fairly unobtrusively on the landscape. And they can be used for other things, like if there is a group that wants, for example, a yoga group, and they can go use the little pavilion if there's nothing going on. So we really wanted to make them as flexible as we possibly could, because we're not really sure where Grailville can go or where it will go. So these things can serve many purposes. There's movable beds. The beds flip up. You can put 8 people in one. You can put 4 people in one. You can move the beds from one unit to another, and so really they can be used for any sort of group that you could think of. And
yeah, I mean, another good thing about keeping it small too, and having the individual units and being able to move them is by putting all of the stuff we needed to make it net zero energy, net zero water on the site, then we could keep as little of that out of the actual living unit as we, as possible, which made it even more flexible. If you look at the floor plans that I'm handing around, it's really just one room and like a bathroom, and we were able to do that because we could keep all of the photovoltaics off the unit, and we could keep all the water, stored on the site and all the water catchment on the site. And by keeping it small like that, we were really able to reduce the cost per square foot and increase the feasibility of making it net zero. Instead of trying to renovate all of Hodier for a retreat center and making that net zero energy, and trying to figure out the dynamics of that entire undertaking. We kept it really small and, like we were saying, feasible and flexible. And
you can build them as you need them. So instead of doing a huge project all at once where it's a lot of capital up front, and then you kind of are hoping that it'll be used and that it'll pay off. You can build these one at a time. If you say you need a couple more, then you can add a couple more, and you can keep going as the years go on if you need them.
That was kind of the idea of scaling back in the beginning and really letting that organic agriculture business idea take root, and then from there we can start to build back up, which is kind of what this is showing. We scale everything back down, and then as we need it, we can start to build back up and get more and more units and more people. And that's actually kind of what this was showing. We gave you additional ideas of where the units could be.
Which spreads out the program of Grailville. Initially, from the beginning, if we are starting to move heavily into the agriculture, there's kind of going to be a rift between the hub of Grailville and then the agriculture. It's kind of going to be separated, and that's just how it's going to be initially. But once we start building these little things, you can put them out here, because nobody ever goes out there, and it's a beautiful site. And we felt that with the hub being so concentrated, that maybe there was some missed opportunities of actually exploring the site, especially in the summer. We think that in the winter the units would be closer together, closer to the hub, closer to the dining, just so people don't have to walk in the winter if there's programming during the winter. But in the summer especially, people are more willing to walk outside, and so it spreads out. And the other thing too is that you can start making connections between the retreat goers as they start ramping back up and the agriculture. Maybe it's you have something where you have intern farmers who are working seasonally. Maybe if you need to, they need some housing for just a week or something. They could live in these things, or you can start having interactions between the agriculture and the retreats, and then you have a new dynamic going on where you're kind of rebranding yourself as this sanctuary of sustainable farming and land stewardship.
Again, I'm Mary, and this is Emmy and Bo. And our project extends from this purple bar over to these lineup pictures. And the models we have up here are the site model and a model of the new dining hall, which would be a new building on the site. So, to begin with, when we visited Grailville, we really felt a connection with the landscape, with the pond, with the woods, being one in nature. We felt that this being in a rural area, it was very nice to just go and relax, ponder, be one with nature again. So with that being said, we wanted to look at our ideal clients as spirituality retreats, as veterans with PTSD, healing type retreats, also opening it up to high school, life success, team building type retreats, so that there could be privacy, retreats such as healing, spirituality, or also the team-based retreats. So up here is the current hub with the House of Joy, Dining Hall, Hodier, and Caravansary. And we kind of drag the hub down to create this new piece. So we have a new dining hall being built and 2 new lodges. I'll briefly take you through the procession of the site. So as you approach on O'Banionville Road up here, you come down to this drive, and there's parking here, just gravel parking, and then handicap parking up here with some more gravel parking. In which case, you walk out of your car, and down there, that image is the image that you see as you step out of your car. So we were trying to figure out in guests coming to the retreat center, wayfinding how they would enter the site, what their first visions would be. And when we visited it throughout the semester, we were standing on that spot, and we were just like, this is it. Like, this is actually really cool. That's a very cool view of the Caravansary, which will be the new Welcome Center. And so with that idea in mind, after you step out of your car, we wanted the pedestrians to take dominance over the vehicles. So we would have a pedestrian walkway come right up to the driveway in front of St. Benedicite. So you would walk up to the top floor of Caravansary, which would be the new Welcome Center. It would have history on display, check-in, all of those types of things, in which case then you would walk through downstairs or take the elevator down, and then you would be in the new retreat center. So that at that time, all of your vehicles would be set aside. You would just be in the nature here. And then from the Caravansary, you would walk to, if you're staying in this lodge, Hodier has first floor residential still. We're keeping beds in here until, because we have a phasing plan, we have a 20-year phasing plan, so this bottom lodge isn't actually going to be built until 20 years later, so we need some extra beds there. And then the labyrinth, we're moving down here to have it more private across the pond. And we would like to keep, though, an underlay of the labyrinth to signify that it was there. It is a big part of Grailville's history. So we would like to have some dirt paths come around, signifying the old path of the labyrinth, have different sections with materials, but still these hard concrete paths raise up, or they are more dominant in the space of wayfinding between the buildings.
So we have a 20-year phasing plan. Starting with the first year is mostly keeping up with the grounds, fixing the nature trail, adding parking, things we need to prep before we get construction. Then we move into a new lodge right away. We want to make sure that we have a place to put people before we start to add other new buildings. So we're going to add a new lodge. And then after...
Which the first new lodge would be right
this one, sorry, yes. So then we're about 3 years in, starts the third phase, and we're going to renovate Hodier and add meeting space upstairs. Right now the attic is unused. We're going to add meeting space up there. Next,
You're adding meeting up there?
yes,
Like
we're
a
going to
big
complete
type
open floor
reception
plan,
space.
just meeting, reception,
So it's
whatever
still
needs to
very
happen,
open.
but we're going to use that space. Then we're going to add the dining hall, which is our LBC building. It's going to hold 200 people, and it has a lot of space on the exterior as well, which we'll get to later in the presentation. More aesthetics, but then begin to concentrate on moving everything into our new hub. Concentrating on this area, putting in the paths, connecting the buildings. We're going to move into gardening in this area, extending the garden you have right now behind the behind Hodier in front of the House of Joy. We're going to extend that garden we're going to eventually remove the office building and move all of that into the House of Joy. And once we do that, this becomes the Grail, and everything else becomes the center. So the Grail has its area that the people from the retreat center don't really interact with. That becomes like the member area, but everything else becomes the retreat
Which is
center.
the member area then?
The old dining hall and the House of Joy.
So it's almost like strips. So this would be the Grail, this would be the retreat center, and this would be more, privacy, nature type area.
We also want to remove the Milk and Honey House and move that, continue a path out to the road and move it closer to the road, more of like a farmer's market or a farm stand that you can see, so it gives the CTA an option to sell to more people than people that know that it's there. That driving by, you can stop and buy stuff
So
beside the
where are you
road.
moving it?
It's actually this way, it's off the map.
So we're rerouting this farm drive from the barns to either, if it'll work, on Route 48 or back over to O'Banionville Road.
Then the end of our phasing plan ends with adding a new lot, a second lot as well, which brings our total up to, depending on, we didn't really concentrate on Hodier, how many people were going to be in there. There's so many other projects that did the floor plan for Hodier. It leaves us from about 110 to 125 people.
And then our new dining hall will seat 200 people, with the idea if there's a wedding, they can come over there and have a reception in the space, or a reception in the second floor of Hodier.
The building has two different structural systems. There's two crossing column grids. All the buildings on the farm face the road. They're square to the road, and that wasn't optimal for photovoltaics. So we wanted to keep that feel of the farm, but shift the shading device on top to optimize the sun that we needed, the direct sunlight. So that's how we're going to power the building, is PVs on the roof. There's about 8,000 square feet of photovoltaics on the roof. Then cooling, we have a cool tube that runs underneath the pond. There's vents, you can see it in this floor plan. There's vents that go all throughout the space. It's going to bring that air up. Bring the air up. Also a fan at the base, just to force it a little bit up. Our water collection system is also in the shading device. It's tube steel that's going to run up, that's going to support it, but PV that comes back down with gutters built in through the structure. That's going to bring that water down to water collection storage under the ground.
Can you say that again?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so
The water does what?
the water goes down through the structure here, and it's collected into tanks below the ground. The tanks are kind of like what you have right now underneath the dining hall. We're just kind of going to collect it from this rooftop here.
And then there'll be 2 additional smaller tanks on the front deck where this structure comes down in the front.
Are the downspouts, is the tube steel the downspout, or are you having an independent downspout separate from
It's
the
inside
structure?
of it.
What material are you sheathing it? You're not using the actual structure as the
No,
downspout?
no, not the structure. It's inside the structure.
Okay, so
We
you
have
have
a
a
pipe.
separate downspout
Yes,
that's surrounded by the structural
yes,
tube.
yes.
And what is that material of your downspout?
I don't really have an answer for that. We didn't really talk about the actual material it was going to be.
Clearly, it's not PVC.
No, okay. I know I said that a minute ago, but as soon as I said it, I know I can't do that. Cast iron.
And how does the water actually get to this downspout piece? Is there like channels or something
Yes,
underneath there?
where the column grid is, there's channels that are built in with crickets that can stop the water. As it goes further down, there should be less and less water, hopefully, that's being caught. That's why the very last row goes down to tanks that's on the deck to water the irrigation on the outside.
Answer questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Hi, my name is Luke Dewell.
My name is Justin Hegeman.
I'm Alex Reardon.
And I'm David Burbank. Okay, so obviously you can see by the name of our board, Gathers. Our main focus was to recreate Grailville as a retreat center that it has a cohesive design and can work for a lot of different people. We really, really like the land at Grailville, and we think that one of your biggest problems is actually the hub itself. So a lot of the people that are coming in are complaining about having to walk from where they are to the dining hall and back. And we think that's okay, that we really want them to be outside of the buildings. We think that they shouldn't just be inside their living quarters. But we think that it should be an option to be a little closer, and then the hub itself should have nicer areas to walk through. So it's not just kind of walking through the building and you think, oh, I'm behind the building, I need to get around to it, to a different side. So we really wanted to connect things together. This retreat center, we focused mainly on two buildings, Hodier and the new dining hall. And those two combined together in order to create a larger client base for Grailville. So we didn't want to exclude any of the client bases that you currently have, but we wanted to kind of upmarket Grailville so that you have more reach potentially, both financially and to spread your message to everybody else. So, like I said, we focused on Hodier. It's kind of a complete redo. Justin will get to that in a minute. And this is the dining hall. And David will get to that in a second. But for overall site, in terms of procession, we kept the main two driveways that Grailville has currently, but we reordered those functions. So this is now the main entrance, and it comes down to this gravel parking lot. But we kind of wanted to offset the idea of a large sea of gravel. So it's not just a parking lot, there's plantings within it, trees. So it's still a parking lot, you still have your cars there, but it offsets that a little bit. And then there's also parking over here for access to Benedice and things like that. Other than that, we have included some site pieces like a fire pit. We have a large speaking space. We also have moved the garden space from over here and expanded it so that it's more of a key piece. You can see kind of in this rendering that it's right in front of that key rendering on the site. So when you get out of your car, you'd be here obviously, and that's this view. So you're looking straight over to Hodier. And the shading device, which Mary had mentioned earlier, I call it the solar pavilion. That is those things, or this model here, if you want to hold it up real quick. So these are spread out through the site. So they combine the solar PV, some shading, and areas for people to meet around the site. You can see there's two more at the end of the garden and even more down throughout the site itself. These are kind of that educational piece so that people can see the PV. You can see what's happening in Grailville. If you go into one of those pavilions, there could be a screen there to tell you immediate output of what's going on in the PV. You can see that energy that you're capturing at Grailville. So outside of the hub though, we've also included some major updates to existing buildings. We've added a new road coming from the back part where there's the farm and tractors, so that the CSA would have their own farm stand, connect up to the road, separated a little bit from the people that are maybe having a retreat on Saturday, don't need a bunch of cars coming in for people to get their vegetables. And we've also expanded, hopefully Grailville can attract some more weddings eventually, so that's the dining hall is part of that, so that it is large enough to accommodate wedding space. But in the future, if it was necessary, there could also be a reception hall built up there.
So with Hodier right now, it currently has seating for about 26, and we were looking at a way to possibly make that more efficient or have fit more people in there. We ran through a number of different scenarios where we looked at what was the best way to put beds in there. Was it to have one person with their own private bathroom, to all the way up to having just 4 rooms with 15 people in them. We ended up settling on this configuration, which is 2 beds with their own private bathroom. The beds would kind of have the storage underneath where you have your drawers for people that were staying for a longer period. We could fit a desk or 2 in there for people that wanted for the meditation when they were writing in there. Hodier then, instead of going for 26, would be able to hold would hold 64 beds inside of it. And then on the southern end of Hodier would be some indoor areas for kind of small activities, groups of 8 to 10 or smaller, and then part of that would be this greenhouse and sun space, which you see in this rendering here, which is part of the area that connects to the dining hall, but would allow for an area that could be used, that would be kind of an indoor-outdoor space that could be used throughout the year. And then talking about the dining hall, Dave is going to talk about that.
For the new dining hall, I wanted to make room for about 200 people to kind of, for weddings or large events like this Easter gathering we had this last week. I decided to go with a sawtooth roof configuration. This would provide a couple entry points for sunlight to kind of come in from the north side. We had a sun space on the south side that overlooked the gardens, kind of reminding people as they're eating where the food's coming from. Now, probably not all the food for these 200 people would be able to be harvested from here, but it kind of reinforces the idea. So we added kitchens that were larger because we felt the current dining hall to have adequate facilities for it. This would be able to serve 200 people, weddings, retreats, hopefully kind of be more of a catch-all. Beneath the dining hall on the lower floor, we have a couple small classrooms, as well as a large space for storage and utilities. We'll talk about the sun space then.
Yeah, sun space is it's about like 4 feet or 5 feet in width, and it runs along the entire dining hall. And it is used primarily as a way to harvest energy. So we would be heating the interior spaces via the sun space. The heat would be gathered in this confined space and then directed through vents into this rock bed, which is below both levels. And this rock bed would heat up, capture that heat, and then could be released later. It wouldn't have to be released immediately, and it would be released back into the building via fans and ducts. And then for cooling, there would be windows on the north and south facade, and that would allow for the winds to move through the building. And we also have movable panels. These panels are able to slide in front of this glazed facade to cool the space from direct gain. They have insulation within them, so it provides a barrier from the heat if you wanted to cool the space. In terms of energy, we have the solar PVs on the roof. We have water collection from the roof, which goes into storage tanks, which are located in the basement. Yeah, I think it covers it.
Yes.
Yeah, for
Yes.
rainwater, yeah.
So those cisterns.
Yeah, similar to what the dining hall is.
Well, in our approach, we looked at the idea of taking the main retreat functions, such as dining and meeting space and residency, and centralizing them around a collection of outdoor spaces.
Jesse, I don't think we can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll speak louder. So the idea is this would create a more unified complex that would allow groups to connect with the landscape without, excluding them from it. And there would also be, these spaces would serve as kind of parallel outdoor spaces so that functions that would normally take place indoors could take place outdoors as well. Again, encouraging the idea of that connection to the land that Grailville has. And this, provides ways for people to better enjoy their surroundings.
We kind of focused on Hodier for our Living Building Challenge, and right now it's used as a residence. But we examined the buildings on the site, and we decided that a residence isn't really a good fit for Hodier because the rooms are small. And so we made a new residence on the northeast. And this allows us to accommodate current clients, but also more upscale accommodations for possibly future clients. And so Grailville could just decide what they needed specifically. So for Hodier, we decided to change it into a dining hall. And we chose Hodier because it's iconic to Grailville, and they wanted to keep the character, but we just wanted to make a better use of the space. This is the upper floor of Hodier as we redesigned it. It allows the timber frame construction to show and be appreciated. And we also added glazing on all 4 walls to allow for views of the landscape while you're dining. And on the first floor, we decided to make flexible meeting spaces that could also be used, as was mentioned, for dining if you wanted to separate the spaces a little bit. And the kitchen for the dining on the first floor. Hodier is a repurposed barn, and the whole idea is we just want to keep that character. There is a building called the Caravansary to the east of Hodier, and we sort of made a connection to that building to provide space for mechanical, and we added an elevator to make all of it ADA accessible, which is kind of a big thing for Living Building Challenge. And it also provides just another point of access to both buildings, because there are meeting spaces in the Caravansary, so it kind of makes it just a little bit more inclusive.
Where is the elevator? Where?
It would be in this junction between the buildings.
And on the diagram, it is where?
Over here. So you can go up these stairs to get to the top level, or the elevator here. And we also added a bay to the south here and to the east to provide room for this meeting space that we put in, as well as for better circulation. It also allowed us to put some double height spaces in here to add sort of a visual connection between the first and second floor, as well as to have some more cross ventilation through sort of the whole building. We also did the evaporative cooling tube, like Alex mentioned, to get cool air into the first and second floor. And this here is a desiccant waterfall. So when the west winds come in, it kind of goes through this and it dehumidifies the air, and so it can cool off the space better. And I'll talk more about how that works exactly. And on the south side, we have we designed these water tubes as a feature, and we just wanted to utilize the south energy as much as possible. Since we couldn't use it for PV panels, we decided to collect the heat in the tubes to use at a later time, and a little bit of dispersion at cooler temperatures. And that ties into our landscape.
All right. So really our main design driver was water. And in this project, water is used for a lot of things, the typical uses of, drinking and toilets and things like that, but also it's used for heating and cooling and dehumidification. And so we really wanted to kind of take those functions and create this, aesthetic kind of presence within the space to kind of showcase how that's happening and use it to the best of our advantage in order to create kind of a comfortable environment outdoors. So I'll start by explaining the model. And I'll shift. Yeah, I guess I should. So I'll start with our rainwater collection. And we have rainwater collection planned for the roof of our new residence. This isn't the whole residence, we kind of chopped it off, but you get the idea. It's coming down this roof. The idea is then that it's being held in a kind of a reservoir held in the side of the building that then slowly releases it down kind of an acoustic accent wall. So rather than just having that water kind of coming down and being a feature when it's raining, which is when people aren't really outdoors anyways, it's held there. We kind of designed it to be built into the new structural system of the new residence. So it's coming down this accent wall into this trough where it's difficult to see, but the idea is this is where the first flush system would be. So it's taking all of the kind of unpleasant things and starting to fill in these
Right.
water tubes systematically. And then as that's happening, people are able to see these balls rising to cut off kind of, as the first flush is taken care of, to cut off, filling those tubes anymore to let the cleaner rainwater continue naturally. We wanted these two sides to kind of remain different because they're programmatically different, but for there still to be kind of that cross access and to have access to kind of the welcome center.
How does the food get from the first floor kitchen to the second floor dining room?
There's a food lift.
There's.
There's
Is it near the, where is that?
Oh, that's another thing that didn't talk, but yeah, it's back there by the, and that would be kind of at the back of, so we're looking south here, but that would be behind, yeah, would be behind in this area. Because those chairs would be, that would be behind in this area, and there would be kind of like a server station where people could get the food and then distribute it throughout the dining room.
Did you have a particular reason for putting the dining room upstairs?
We really felt like we wanted to take advantage of that aesthetic. David mentioned the oratory has that really kind of stunning timber frame construction. And we felt like lifting the dining hall up there would kind of allude to that similar aesthetic and also provide views out of the landscape. So while people are dining, they're seeing kind of these spectacular views of the landscape, and it's just becomes a really pleasant space to be.
I'm just wondering how the kitchen staff would react.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, that is.
It's just
it does complicate things logistically.
Then you always
It
have
looks
to have this
beautiful.
that you could use as dining area too, and then you'd be closer.
Yeah.
Right. There's a stairwell back there. It would involve going up and downstairs to a certain extent, but we did include like a food prep place in the kitchen. So ideally, you'd be able to kind of make more efficient use of your trips to prepare everything and then lift it up to the top floor.
I want to say that I think there are really fantastic kernels in each one that excite me personally, and that I'm really grateful to you all for your very best energy. And I think it really worked well, and at a certain level, I think we may have been the client from hell. Well, just that we had a lot of things that were requirements and a lot of problems to throw at you, and that you really worked hard to respond to what we needed, and I'm really grateful. And please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.